Welcome to Company Secrets, the Nutcracker Paradox. I'm your host, Jared Redick. This season, we are diving into the most enduring, profitable, and beloved ballet in the world, the Nutcracker. Every year, millions watch it. But how are today's choreographers and artistic leaders handling its complex history and its future? This is season 2. Let's get started. My guest today is Phil Chan, arts administrator, educator, author, and choreographer. He has held fellowships with NYU, the Manhattan School of Music, New York Public Library for the Performing Arts, and is a fellow at Drexel University and the French National Institute for Art History in Paris, and currently a visiting lecturer at Harvard University. In 2017, he co-founded the arts advocacy organization Final Bow for Yellowface, with a mission to eliminate outdated and offensive Asian stereotypes from our stages. His question, how do you honor tradition while addressing its problematic elements, is particularly urgent when it comes to Nutcracker. It is ballet's biggest moneymaker, its greatest ambassador to new audiences, and it's filled with 19th century conventions that companies are now rethinking. Phil is here to talk about how to examine ballet's traditions honestly. Welcome, Phil.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here and good to see you again.
Always a pleasure to chat. Happy Nutcracker season.
Thank you. I guess a congratulations is in order because I saw you posted as of yesterday, every major American and UK ballet company has signed the Final Bow for Yellowface pledge.
Yeah, that's right. It's been 8 years of leading this conversation since that initial meeting with Peter Martins at the New York City Ballet in 2017. And it's just had a really beautiful ripple effect sense of just asking ourselves, how do we represent each other with more nuance to build empathy for people? So it's just been a really beautiful ride the last 8 years, seeing this movement and this conversation grow.
It really is amazing. I've been following it for at least the last 6 years, and just kudos to you for all that you're doing and really making a substantial change in the ballet world.
Thank you.
When you look at Nutcracker, what's the first word that comes to mind?
God, magic. Easy. I love the Nutcracker. And what I love about it is a lot of people think it's just this like lighthearted kid story and there's like a mouse and like, some sweets and sugar plums but like there's a deeper story to it. And it's about this young woman and she's seeing all these adults start to how they live. And she has sort of a beginning of awareness of that she's not a child anymore, not a little girl, and she's starting to become a grown up. And what does that mean? She has this dream that takes her around the world, and it ends with this, bittersweet moment where she sees this ideal romantic love. That's Tchaikovsky wrote this beautiful but dark music for the Sugar Plum Fairy at the end of the ballet. And it's a bittersweetness of life and sort of a loss of innocence. And it takes place sort of overnight in this fever dream where the young girl starts the ballet as a girl and sort of ends the ballet as a young woman who's a little bit more sure of herself and the realities of the world. And it's so beautiful. And it's so great to be able to give this opportunity to so many young dancers as they're growing through their careers. So I don't know, like it's so easy to punch at Nutcracker, but it remains one of the most beautiful, sublime pieces of art, I think. The music alone is just magic. Yeah, I think it's magic. And every time you see the Nutcracker, it just reminds you that, oh, this is someone's first time at the ballet. And this is the coolest thing that they have ever seen. And so that's why I love it.
I completely agree with all of that. It is usually the first touch point for so many young people in particular, exposure to ballet, exposure to live performance, and of course the magic of the story and the music.
And I think that's why this work with Final Bow for Yellowface is so important in traditional productions that date back to the late 19th century. Clara, or Marie, the protagonist, goes to the Kingdom of Sweets in the second act, and she meets all of these confections that a Russian audience at that time would have identified as part of the sort of global trade. Coffee, chocolate, tea, all of these sort of delicacies that represented the world. And so it was a great, appropriate way to showcase the world is through things that the local audience at that time would have understood. But right now, this piece has transformed into this much larger ambassador for us as ballet. We're at this critical moment where we're shifting from being a Eurocentric art form to being a truly global art form, where we're questioning pink tights. Well, what does flesh tone mean? We're questioning what we do with makeup. We're questioning how we do things. What is natural hair? What are all of these questions that are just part of what happens when we are not just an art form by the nobility of Europe anymore? So even white Americans, ballet is not originally meant for you. So this work in diversifying ballet includes all of us as Americans. So what do we do when we have this outdated version of all these cultures from the 19th century that may be caricatured? And we're saying, on the other hand, hey, we want this art form to be bigger. We want to be more inclusive of everybody. Yet, ching chang chong, here's your heritage and culture that we would have looked like 200 years ago. Like, that doesn't work that way, right? Like, we can't say, hey, Mrs. Singh, my neighbor's Indian. Hey, Mrs. Singh, I want you to join the ballet world. Drop your kids off at our school, join the board, buy a subscription, donate a lot of money. But like, here's La Bayadere, which has nothing to do with your culture. It's in brown face. It's nothing you identify with. And like, sorry, you're offended, but this is our heritage. No, thank you for your check. It doesn't work that way, guys. So how do we not just dismiss our heritage, the important traditions like Bayadere, like Nutcracker? How do we not just cancel them and throw them out and say, well, they're problematic, they're products of their time? How do we keep that heritage alive, but reimagine them to work for the 21st century? And we do this all the time with Shakespeare. We do this all the time with opera. So this shouldn't be scary for us, right? If you've seen a Shakespearean play, it's probably a different setting than it originally was written by Shakespeare. Or you probably have seen women on stage in a Shakespearean play. You're already seeing something radical if you're seeing a woman on stage doing Shakespeare. So if we can change these things to change with the times, to keep them alive, to keep them relevant, to keep them important, to keep them to have that important emotional space in our hearts for everybody, I think these little tweaks have to be made, especially when we want our art form to be bigger. So yeah, Nutcracker's sort of the lowest hanging fruit for this conversation. And I think why it has been such an important catalyst for the Final Bow for Yellowface conversation, and what has led us to now, 8 years later, being able to say that like our best practices don't involve Asian caricature anymore.
Right. I mean, it is an involved conversation for sure, as you just were articulating so beautifully, which leads us into a really good segue here. Is you and I both know that tea and coffee divertissements, they're complicated in Nutcracker. What's the most creative solution you've seen a company attempt?
I really, really love what Peter Boal has done at the Pacific Northwest Ballet. They do the Balanchine Nutcracker, which is, sacred in America. It's the biggest moneymaker for the Balanchine Trust. It's in the New York City Ballet, and most of the ballet companies who do the Balanchine version. There's, I think, at least 5 in the United States alone. And so it's a big deal, and it's important, and it's what was on CBS and broadcast all over the world in 1954 that got Nutcrackers to be tied to Christmas. So it really has this important emotional place. So we can't just change things willy-nilly. And he very thoughtfully tried to reimagine this dance and asked one of my favorite creative prompts. This is really my guiding star as an artist. Asking yourself, what else could it be? When you're a little kid and it's like, you have a pen, but it's not just a pen, it's a rocket ship, or it's a magic wand, or it's a lightsaber, right? But it's just a pen. And that is the creative energy that we have to stay open to, that childlike wonder, that playfulness, when we ask ourselves, what else could it be? So we have this choreography that we want to keep. So what else could it be if it's not just a chink in the box? That's a slur. Don't use that word. That's my word, but that's what it is. And so it's a coolie. Peter Boal said, okay, so look at the choreography. What else could it be? What if it's a green tea cricket? And I said, Peter, that's brilliant. In Chinese culture, a cricket is a symbol of hope, of spring, of good luck. It's a perfect gift to give to a young lady. Crickets are the most musical of animals. Balanchine dancers claim to be the most musical of dancers. So it's also a very appropriate gift in this context. And also the variation, they wheel out a box. What's in the box? What's in the box? Out pops a cricket who jumps so high, 6 toe touches, and jumps back in the box. How fun, how charming, right? And so if you're a little Chinese boy in the audience, you see that dance and you go, oh, I want to dance that dance.
Mm-hmm.
That's my culture. As opposed to saying, ooh, that's not me. So I find that so charming. So kudos to PNB.
Those who are listening, if you're in the Seattle area, definitely check out PNB's Nutcracker. We should just be rolling up on openings right after, actually, when you're listening to this. And Peter's always He's such a thoughtful artist and human being, so I would not expect anything less from him to come up with such a creative solution.
Yeah, they're really brilliant, doing great work over there. Also, if I were in Seattle, I'd be going to see Ashton Edwards do Sugar Plum. Oh my
Yes,
goodness, I'm like tempted to even just fly out for that because amazing. So if you're in the Seattle area, do not miss it.
I didn't know they were doing Sugar Plum.
Oh my goodness, yes. And do drop, like, just buy all the tickets. I mean, buy the flights, buy the tickets.
Awesome. We touched on this a little bit earlier. We were talking about Nutcracker being the first point of contact to ballet. What do you think if Nutcracker disappeared tomorrow? What would happen to ballet?
Well, we would have to figure out something else to make money, right? Nutcracker is such an important part of the economic ecosystem of ballet. For some companies, they make up to 60% of their annual budget from Nutcracker ticket sales. So it's sort of our commercial moment, but it also says a lot about our industry. It says that we're running on nostalgia and not on appreciation of the art form. When people come once a year for the Nutcracker, or they're dragged to the Nutcracker because their sister was in it, but they don't stay for Agon, or they
Mhm.
don't stay for Sleeping Beauty, or they don't come back for the new choreography that's by Triple Bill program, by living artists, because all they have is Nutcracker. So if you think about it, the majority of Nutcrackers are choreographed by dead people. What does that say about our art form when most of the engagement with our art form is by dead composers and dead choreographers?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think we'd be screwed without Nutcracker, but I think we need more ways in to ballet besides Nutcracker. We need more doors, and we've done that before in the past, right? If you think about Le Corsaire as a ballet, that was like a popular book. That was a super book that people went crazy for. It was a play, it was an opera, it was cartoons, like everywhere. So like, where's the Game of Thrones ballet? Where is Friends, the ballet? Where is White Lotus, the ballet? Do you know what I mean? Like, why did we stop doing that in the 19th century? And we're holding up those works by Petipa as those are the stories. When like Hollywood is telling new stories all the time. Where's Wonder Woman, the ballet? Right? Like, why not? We're already wearing tights, guys. Like, if superheroes are a big blockbuster hit for Hollywood, why would Wonder Woman, the ballet, not also bring in that money for ballet companies? It can also be artistic. It's a ballet company. It doesn't just have to be cheap Broadway feeling style. You can do something deeply creative. But opera's figured it out. Why aren't we doing? Why aren't we doing it? Why haven't we caught up?
Well, hopefully people will hear what you're saying, and choreographers in particular, and will be inspired to go after these projects, because I agree with you. We do need to make it more accessible to more people, and we should be telling contemporary stories. We shouldn't be stuck back in the 19th century.
Do you really want like a slave bazaar ballet like
Right.
now? Do you need like a geisha rape ballet in
Gosh.
2025? Come on, guys. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, it's true. You're absolutely right. So, after spending so much time helping the ballet world rethink itself, what do you still love about the production? And I know we touched on it a little bit at the beginning.
I mean, first of all, the music is just perfect. You just hear that music. There's not a bad note in the entire score. It's a masterpiece. And I love that it's a chance for kids to perform. I love that there's always kids as part of the production. Yeah, I don't know. There's just something magical about Nutcracker that it just, if you're a dancer, you've just done it so many times for so many years. And it's one of the few rituals we have. In many cases, we give up Thanksgiving and Christmas
Mhm.
with our families since we're
Yeah.
young to do this. So this becomes like that emotional placeholder. So yeah, I mean, like it's special. It's magic. The Sugar Plum Fairy Padada, the Grand Padada music starts, and it's just so magical. I mean, it's also really funny because at that point in the ballet, that's when like the little kid sitting in front of you is like, "Mommy, I'm bored," the most beautiful music. And like that's the part. But yeah, it's just about life. It's all in there. Growing up and romance and joy and playfulness and sensuality and angst, tension, battles, fighting, family, community, joy, sadness. It's all there.
It's all there. I personally think with Nutcracker, it's one of the perfect ballets, being two acts, two very, very distinct acts, really. When you look at it, you could break it apart and look at it as two completely different stories how the narrative actually rolls out. But it's just so magical every year. The same as you, I've seen hundreds of performances of Nutcracker. It's always interesting to see how dancers evolve through the years in all the different parts and all the different roles they do. And even within the same role, right? Like Sugar Plum, for instance, you can see, or Cavalier, you see artists come back to those roles over and over and over again. You see the layers of complexity that they add to it.
Yeah, I mean, it just seeing so many different productions shows me how durable ballet as an art form is. When you can go into any small town and there's a production of Nutcracker and it's a little bit different, but it's all the same, right? It's the same story every time. It's the same, even if they do a little bit of new music or even if the story is a little bit different, the vibe, the spirit, it's the same.
It's true. It's such a universal story. Well, Phil, thank you so much for sharing your stories and insight we usually don't get to hear. It's great as always to chat with you. And thank you for being our guest here.
My pleasure. Yeah, if folks want more information, the first half of my first book called Final Bow for Yellowface is all about Nutcracker, the history of Nutcracker, and also more about this conversation. So if you're a studio owner and you want to do a better Chinese Nutcracker, a better Arabian, and you just don't quite know how, that's a really good place to start. So it's a good stocking stuffer.
Absolutely. And we will make sure that we post all of your information. We'll link to your website so people can check out what you're doing, what Final Bow for Yellowface is doing, and they can learn more about it. Thank you so much for being here, Phil.
Pleasure as always, Jared. Thank you.
If you liked our conversation here today, you can follow Company Secrets Podcast on all platforms and on our website, companysecretspodcast.com. Thank you for listening, because the stage is only part of the story.